A lot of concern about the election at Ondo. Preparations are top gear. And it all looks that the democratic principles for the grassroots development is calling in respect to the elections. That those having a concern and describing the process of what it should be, the preparations, the monitoring, the participations of the international and local observers, the preparations of INEC, the atmosphere by the political parties and voters generally in respect to the election coming from the elections, and tonight we'll be exploring the preparations and of course also underscoring how important is this election in terms for our democracy. Joining us is the Director General for Center for Credible Leadership and Citizen Awareness. We'll be speaking with him to give us an understanding about elections and some of the silent issues that have been raised by the pre-elections matters and issues concerning the Ondo cycle election. Dr. Wambu Gabriel is connected with us from Ondo State to give us a perspective to all of these issues that have been raised. Good evening, Dr. Gabriel. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
All right, I would love to get your perspective. Tell us how the atmosphere. We understand that it's just a matter of time for the people of Ondo to come out to vote. What is the atmosphere like? Is it still tense or is it still calm?
Yeah, thanks so much. May I start from pursuant to Section 28, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, which clearly mandates INEC, to issue notice of election, for which INEC has done for Edo and Ondo states, respectively. They did that more than 1 year ago, and that is what we're facing. We're seeing the effect right now. We have seen what is happening in Ondo State. The Center for Credible Leadership deployed 430 field observers across the 18 local government areas, 203 wards, and then we have 3,933 polling units across the 18 local government areas of Ondo State. And then INEC is deploying 4 ad hoc electoral officers per each polling unit. In other words, we expect to see 1 presiding officer and then 3 assistant, presiding officers, to man each polling unit. That is each of the 3,933, polling units. Now, in terms of security, the Nigerian police, which is the lead agency in charge of internal security, has told us that they have deployed 36,637 police officers. The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has also deployed 6,000 officers and men. So what we are saying is that we expect to see a credible election. Recall also that Ondo State has a peculiar terrain. You have areas that are the Ilaje, Esodo, those Ijaw-speaking area of Ondo State. These are areas that are purely marine. These are areas that are, purely water. So elections are going to take place in the local government areas, in the polling units that you have to navigate through the marine, through the waters to get to these polling units. But however, what we are saying is that we have been observing the election, right from the time INEC wrote the timetable for elections. So the pre-election observation we have made has shown that INEC has demonstrated capacity to have an improvement from what we saw in Ondo State. INEC has also promised that we are going to see a very significant improvement in terms of logistics, which we are seeing as of today, in terms of the performance of the bivoter voter BVAS technology, in terms of accreditation of electorate, in terms of uploading the election results, that is the from the polling unit level, from EC8A series, that they are going to be uploaded, online and real time, so that people will be able to see what is happening, across the 18 local government areas of Ondo State. So far, so good. We, as INEC accredited observer groups, the Center for Credible Leadership, we observe the distribution of sensitive election materials, from the central bank, CBN, down to the rack centers.
All right.
As we speak right now, these election materials are in the rack centers. So on Friday morning, they are going to move from the rack centers directly to the respective polling units.
All right. I mean, we still having a concern in respect to logistics because there are those that will argue that part of the problem is logistics on the election day. Sometimes movement of materials on that day, not really on the pre-elections issues. Give us an understanding about the readiness in this regard, because we've also heard when INEC said we are ready. But what we often see in elections morning is always the delays of arrival of materials at the different polling units. What are the causes
Yeah,
of
thank you
this?
so much. Thank you so much. I like in Edo State, we saw some delays in Edo State. Like we saw situations where the ad hoc staff were ready from the rack centers to move to the polling units, and you find out that the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, will just must have absconded, and then they'll just be looking for them. So what had happened in Edo State is what we could call some relative level of sabotage, which we believed was deliberate. We tried to, engage some of the drivers in Edo State. They said some of them said the money they are expected to be paid have not been paid. Some said they have not received any money. Some said the money they received is quite too meager, to do some kind of job that they were asked to do. So, but however, from the quarterly consultative forum meeting we do have with the management of INEC headquarters in Abuja, that is made up of the INEC chairman, national commissioners, and the directors, and all that. INEC, the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud, reiterated that we are going to see very serious, significant improvements in terms of real-time, performance of both the BVAS and the general conduct of the election. So I think so far it is good. But however, we believe INEC must have taken note of what transpired in Edo State in terms of some relative sabotage from this National Union of Road Transport Workers. And then in terms of Ondo, it has to also include that of the Marine Workers Association. So because they've deployed a lot of speedboats that are going to convey materials. I'm sure probably the Nigerian Air Force, the Nigerian Navy, has also been engaged. If it entails to airlift materials, INEC is ready and has made very serious arrangements to ensure that there are no setbacks as far as this election is concerned.
All right, let me now also take you to, I mean, various, because we have to look at comparing the previous elections and now what we are looking forward to, because all of the problems are very similar issues. And one of those is the issue of vote buying. We understand that we are in a very severe economic situation in our country, that those that are having a concern, is it possible to curtail vote buying? Is it possible to, for politicians or candidates or political parties to look at aware of us sanitizing our elections, because some of these things are indulged by politicians. It is indulged by political parties. And we also have the EFCC and other agencies, and even you, the observers, to also be looking at this issue. Is it possible to curtail that in respect to our severe economic situation in the country?
Well, that's a very hydra-headed, multifaceted question. First of all, I want to start from the total number of registered voters in Ondo State is 2,053,061 registered voters. But the total number of persons that have collected their permanent voters card is 1,757,205. In other words, those who are going to determine who becomes the governor of Ondo State is within the 1.7 million persons. Now, what is happening in Nigeria, as seen in some other states? Ondo State is not an exception. We have seen the influence of, as part of pre-election, that the vote buying is already taking place. We've seen the distribution of rice. We've seen the distribution of foodstuff. We've seen the distribution of wrappers and gifts, items, and other foodstuff, across the state. We've also seen the engagement, engagement of persons that are going to ensure that there will be direct vote buying come on Saturday. But what is going to transpire is that they are trying to make it more classified in a manner that it will be difficult to discern that a vote buying is being perpetrated. They want to make it as classified as possible so that you cannot catch anybody red-handed in terms of, purchasing votes outrightly. So they have made it in a manner. What they are doing right now, some desperate politicians, from our observation, is that they are moving large sum of cash, as much as 20,000 naira per electorate. What they are doing is that they are moving this cash to individual homes in a manner that if you cast your vote and somebody has verified who sits at a vantage point to be sure that you voted for a particular political party, then you could be referred to different homes of party loyalists, where you go and receive your remuneration for selling your votes. So it's going to be more classified. We want to call on the EFCC, especially the ICPC, to come down to ensure that this menace of vote buying, is curbed as much as possible, to reduce it to the barest minimum. Apart from the fact that it is ensuring vote buying enhances the emergence of an unpopular candidate, it's also it's criminal to engage in vote buying. For you that sells and for you that buys, there are punishments that are spelled out for the both individuals, as it were. So we want the EFCC and ICPC, to sit up and ensure that these persons who perpetrate this heinous crime of election malpractice, are apprehended, and Nigerians need to see them being brought to book, not just apprehending them and suddenly we will not hear anything anymore. Apprehending them and giving Nigerians update in terms of prosecution of these persons, so that it will serve as a deterrent to intending perpetrators of such crimes, especially as we move towards Anambra State governorship election for November next year.
I mean, it's a very big issue because the concern of there are some of them that will argue that if they bring money to you, collect is your tax. I mean, the money meant for hospitals and all of that. So these other political parties will always indict the other ones and all of that. But it's also distorting to our elections because we are looking for a way of improving our elections. And a part of those measures in order to implement and ensuring a very smooth electoral process may be challenging, looking at the high inflation, the rising living costs, and the lack of affordable essential services among Nigeria. But let's now get to the issue of security. That those that are also having a concern that elections is not a do or die affair. It looks that in Edo we also had issues of some thuggery activities, and that those that are having a concern, even 2024. Are we still having this conversation about thuggery in elections? People trying to intimidate voters. Stay at home. Do not come out. If you come out, you will face PDP. If you come out, you will see APC. You will come. All of those intimidations as a way of reducing, voters.
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, Ondo State has been classified as a very volatile state. From 1983, as far back as 1983, when the then Jasin, of UPN, you know, or supposedly had won an election, and the election was manipulated, by some other political party, as at that time, allegedly the NPN, as at that time. So Ondo State has been a state that is known, to have been characterized by electoral-related violence. How does it now come to play in this 2024 election? You see, what played out in Edo State was largely more of uh, cult group activities, that metamorphosed to thuggery in terms of, aiding, working for politicians. But that of Ondo State, we are seeing some large number of young men that are being recruited, some idle minds, who are the diehards of some politicians, who are never do wells, who are being engaged by some politicians. We want the Nigerian police, which is the lead agency in terms of internal security and civil activity as such as this, to nip this in the bud. It is easy to manipulate. It is easy to ensure security here. Armed policemen are not actually allowed to come some meters close to polling units. That is the international standard. But armed policemen can stay some yards or some poles from the polling units. This is to prevent accidental discharge. You open fire, you didn't know, especially in areas that are crowded. So, but we expect that the issues of intimidation of electorate should be a thing of the past. The issue of vote buying should be curbed as much as possible. The issues of kidnapping ad hoc staff, collecting beavers from them and sensitive material should also be a thing of the past, because these are things that arrangements have been made properly. As far as we are concerned, we are aware that INEC have put in place a very, very robust election plan in a manner that will ensure a heat-free election in Ondo State. And we look forward to it. So we also expect that areas that are purely marine, the riverine parts of Ondo State, people should ensure that they wear life jackets, to ensure that in terms of boat mishaps, we do not want to see any boat mishap. Oftentimes, it is people that believe that they know how to swim very well, that they were born inside water and all that. These are people that are always victims, because they feel that they don't even need the life jacket. But as part of a safety measure, we want to encourage everybody, for which INEC has also made provision. INEC has provided for life jackets, effective standard speedboats that are going to convey ad hoc staff to the various polling units. In other words, to ensure a heat-free and very smooth election.
All right, all right. Let me take you to the comments made by Governor Makinde, which has reiterated that INEC should ensure that people's vote count on the election, because all of these are still one of the conversation we have been having. Sometimes it looks at some quarters of Nigeria feels the elections in Edo. I mean, some of the people's vote did not count and all of that. What is the assurance this time? Because the consideration of IREF, the consideration of beavers, all of these technologies were deployed, to enhance free and fair elections. What do you really say about these preparations as well, and the stance and commitment of INEC in respect to this, which will boost the confidence of the people of Ondo?
You see, what happened in Edo State was, I think it's purely a different scenario. Initially, people started posting results, and these results people were posting did not even emanate from INEC. People started posting results in different fora, in different
They're arguing
platforms.
that they got it from the IREF, that they downloaded the result from IREF.
Those are things that are arguable. And as far as we are concerned, the elections in Edo State, they stay before a tribunal of competent jurisdiction. So there are certain issues I cannot mention now. But for us, we believe that most of um, the so-called results people claimed were the correct results did not emanate from INEC. It emanated from politicians who were desperate to grasp power. As far as we are concerned, the people of Edo State, in terms of Edo State, have spoken about what they want. They've elected somebody, and it's also proper for anybody who feels shortchanged to ventilate his anger in a court or tribunal of competent jurisdiction. Now, fast forward to Ondo State. Ondo State are persons that their decision in terms of election seem to be a bit different. They tend to follow a particular trend. These are people that are so enlightened. These are people that know what they want and they go for it. These are people that um, are also they hold politicians accountable. So we expect to see something really different, in Ondo State because of the history. If you look at the history from, like I mentioned to you, from 1983 till date, you see the metamorphosis, how it plays out, in Ondo State. So I think the security agencies, the ICPC, the EFCC should ensure that those who give gift items, those who try to buy votes, either using gifts as a medium of inducement or using food as a medium of inducement or using money, physical cash, as a medium of inducement, whether the cash be physical or the cash be transferred through the transfer app, system. These are all vote buying. We expect the EFCC and the ICPC to be up in their game, to also arrest these people and make Nigerians know that we could arrest these people and these people could face the law. You don't arrest them and the next minute we don't hear anything about them anymore. You arrest them when they go to court, you give updates. When they go to court, next appearances, you give updates so that Nigerians will know that really you are doing something. But if there are arrests and suddenly we don't even hear about them anymore, you are not doing anything. You are just killing the country. And you are encouraging people to continue the vote buying because there will be no consequences for their offenses. So if there are no consequences, people will keep perpetrating the ills in the society and they will go nowhere. So if we are saying that Nigeria is becoming a democratically evolving democratic nation, there are certain things you see the way the American election played out very clearly. It was just simple. Everybody was just watching, everybody. And the person who lost the election considered defeat immediately. Can that take place in Nigeria? Do you know how much money that is wasted in terms of litigation and election? Every let me say every 4 years, governorship and presidential election in Nigeria alone. Yeah, so the system, if the system is very transparent and you know that really you put in a good fight and you lost an election, there wouldn't be any need. So start wasting your money going to tribunals and court of competent jurisdiction, as the case may be, just as the case of the US. So these things are not rocket science. It's just that our people, the willpower to ensure that these things are done, is not there anymore. And that is one of the reasons why the country is where it is. We keep getting leaders that are not supposed to be the true leaders that we need, that would, you know, speak forth, make sure they take decisions that would, turn around the country. And then there we go. But if we keep, doing the same thing over and over and we expect results, where are we going from there? We're only deceiving ourselves and we're becoming laughing stock in the League of Nations.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned issue of transparency because it's always the argument, and it looks at if it's transparent for everyone to see, then there will be no issues of litigation because, as we just mentioned, of going to court, our court is already flawed with a lot of litigations, tribunals, and all of that. Some of them are even yet to. To the man, that those are having a consideration that we should spare the judiciary, we should spare the court of all of these shenanigans, brought by issues of politics. Would you also subscribe that we are having a lot of litigations and courts determining who rules the state? Because there are those that are having that concern that it looks at courts are now, instating governors, senators, and all of the electoral offices rather than the people.
It's ironical. It's ironical to find out that what happens in Nigeria is that rather than the populace, rather than the power emanating from the electorates, the power now emanates from the courts. In other words, it is the judges, the justices of Nigeria that determine who occupies political offices in Nigeria, which is really not what is supposed to be. It's not what is supposed to be, because the power that is supposed to emanate from the people is denied, is ripped off. In other words, the vote that is supposed to be your power is no longer your power. It's determined by one or two or a few justices, as the case may be. So this is not where we expect, to be. The power should be returned back, to the people. If I had my way, I would say that some of us actually had opined in these electoral reforms we are trying to do now, that every election in Nigeria should take place in one day. Every election in Nigeria should take place in same day. As we speak now in Ondo State, you have governors from different states of the federation in Akure right now as we speak. What are they doing here? If elections hold in the same day, everybody will be minding his own beat. You wouldn't have time to go and cause trouble in another person's state. You find out that a lot of funds, all these off-cycle elections, where every other state will concentrate and come to one state. Hotels are fully booked, no space. People that don't even have anything to do here want to come here and just show loyalty to a particular person that they are loyal. But if the elections are conducted in same day, I am saying the presidential election, the governorship election, the state assemblies, then the National Assembly election conducted same day is going to, for a country that is crying and looking for where to borrow money in the street of China, it's even more cost effective for us. It's even cheaper for us. The only thing is that you now give the people more ballot papers, same number of ad hoc staff. and the elections will take place, and everybody will be in his village or his polling unit where he has registered and ensure. So that will even reduce electoral related violence. That will be more
All
cost
right.
effective. That will be cheaper for INEC to conduct. And then we'll have less trouble.
All right, let's quickly react to this before we begin to wrap up. The PDP candidate has reiterated that the rec must be removed. You know, we had this conversation in Edo State where the PDP were saying the same thing, and now the PDP candidate in Ondo is also reiterating the same thing. So when you look at the concern of the rec chairman, there are those that are having a concern that it must be independent. They have indicted some allegations that he was involved in a meeting with the governor and the chairman of the party. Quickly react to that before I let you go. Would these allegations stand, and does this in a way affect elections and outcome of elections?
Thank you so much. You see, one of the beauties of democracy is that it allows you to ventilate your anger, to express yourself. But however, that ventilation of anger should be within the ambit of the law. For those who have said that they want the rec of Ondo State to be changed, my question is, what allegations or what accusations have you brought before, that would warrant the stepping down or the changing of the rec? You brought some allegations, then the INEC chairman and the national commissioners will also consider these factors. If it is not reasonable enough, if it is not cogent enough, then it will not hold water. What I tell you is that elections in Nigeria has deteriorated to the extent that anybody that feels he's not going to probably do well in an election will have a cooked up, a trump up allegations. How can we be changing recs like that? You just come up one day, you say you want the person just because you feel that you are going to lose an election, just to put studs in the wheel so that the elections will not be smooth. You don't just accept everything. And then the courts are there for you to actually exercise your right. You can go to court. But you don't just, anybody can come. If we continue like this, then nobody, even you, if you are appointed as the resident electoral commissioner for Ondo State, any other person who probably does not even know anything about you can generate, allegations, write petitions against you, and you'll be removed. The next person will be removed. Eventually, the election will not hold. So we can't just be listening or, taking the people will just be saying change, 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 when you don't have concrete issues to substantiate your claims. You must be able to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt that your argument should hold or has some potentials of
All right.
holding water, not just to say it verbally for saying sake. So I think that the resident electoral commissioner of Ondo State is equal to the task. She's fit and she's there and determined to conduct a very transparent, credible elections,
That's what we
come
want.
Saturday, the 16th of
Dr.
November,
Nwabu Gabriel,
2020.
the Director General and Convener Center for Credible Leadership and Citizen Awareness. Thanks so much for sparing some of your time with us and give us an update. We'll have you more maybe on Sunday and looking at the outcome of the election. By then, we can have gathered so much facts and the result as the result will be coming in. So as we keep on tracking the development from the elections. Thanks so much.
Thank you, my brother, and thanks for having me. Good night.
All right, a lot of development in concern in respect to Ondo off-cycle elections. The atmosphere and, of course, the readiness and the preparation by the Independent National Electoral Commission is at top gear. And the voters are ready to march in their numbers tomorrow to elect the governor of the state. There are a lot of those that are having a concern that this time is not just about the projection of the election, it's another determination to looking at how they can get the development for the people of Ondo when we look at the current severe economic and social issues. This looks like shape the expectations and demand from the elections. So we are looking at the very calm situation because already Ondo is experiencing a calm anticipation as the governorship elections get to take place tomorrow. The atmosphere is filled with hope and readiness as the political parties and the security measures are being implemented to ensure a smooth and electoral process. We'll keep tracking and bringing the developments as far as the Ondo off-cycle election is concerned. My name is Udike Michael. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Big Talk. See you again.